Is in charity law something called restricted funds. So for example, when the investment bank JP Morgan gave a £90,000 donation to Kids Company to fund a financial literacy worker for 3 years, that was the only thing the money could legally be spent on. But some leaked emails I've been shown suggest that the post JP Morgan thought it was funding was left vacant for nearly 2 years.
I am now taking over writing the report for JP Morgan, who have agreed to donate £30,000 for 3 years to the role of financial literacy worker at the Urban Academy. They are coming to the end of their 2nd year of donations and need a report so we can get our 3rd year of funding. I know this role ended in January 2008. Did anyone specific fill this role? Or was a new role created?
Take care, you are not using the latest database. Please update.
Has gone since they left. Can you suggest 1 or 2 roles this money may have covered?
Hi, thanks for your email. As far as I'm aware, nobody has replaced him for this role. Neither has another one been created in replacement for it. I will see whether they're appointing anyone else in the meantime. And as soon as I know of something, I'll let you know. I was thinking though, could these funds be donated to any other roles at all, or diverted to any other department?
Camilla Batman-Gelage agrees that it's a serious issue if, as these emails seem to suggest, the money wasn't spent for the purpose specified by the donor.
I would be shocked, genuinely shocked, if we hadn't honoured a restricted fund. Because we have to report on restricted funds and do exactly with those what we're told to do. We are genuinely rigorous about all this because each time we get audited by independent auditors, they specifically look at evidencing restricted funding. Otherwise we won't pass the audit. So I would need to look at that. If that was the case, I would find that really, really wrong myself. But I would need to have a look at that and come back with you.
You've not come across that situation where someone's come to you and said, Camilla, look, they want a report on this and we don't know what's happened. That post, that project hasn't happened. That's not happened.
No, I'm not aware of that at all.
When Kids Company went back and checked this, they said JP Morgan may have been mistaken as the charity had received money from different parts of the bank over that period. Kids Company broke down these figures for us, but they didn't quite tally with those in the emails and the bank's own records. Since the closure of the charity, there's been much anguish about the fate of the young people they helped. This was regularly quoted as 18,000 being intensively helped, but even with hundreds of staff, that seems a lot of cases for each key worker. Genevieve Maitland-Hudson was head of education at Kids Company and a key worker until she left in 2009. She's been through the figures and says the numbers that it's claimed were being intensively helped just don't add up.
I think that number is difficult to substantiate. So if you were to assume that there were 400 full-time key workers at Kids Company who were working with the smaller of the 2 quoted figures that the charity claimed, so 18,000 intensively supported has been a recurrent figure. If you actually run that, then you find that they have a caseload of 45. Now the standard caseload in children's services is 70.
So according to her analysis, Kids Company key workers would be dealing with double the number of children that a social worker would have. And that would be even more difficult, bearing in mind the charity's philosophy.
If you think of that in the context of the claimed model that Kids Company has of always being available for a young person, of offering this level of accessible support that Children's Services is incapable of offering, it seems to me that those numbers...
Engine operating temperature has been reached.
So I think it is far more likely that the key work figure is lower. Now the reason I say that is because the advice for the most intensive level of support for the most needy families is a maximum caseload of 5. And I think this is a feature of Kids Company's approach to public communication, that there's a muddle. There's an imprecision about what they're saying.
The most high risk group of kids, that's what's sucking up all our money. The expenditure on the latest database it was 15,933. Okay, this is the group where their key workers allocated.
Your staff, how many of them are key workers of the 650 staff?
It's a great question you ask, because it's not just the key workers who work with kids. Every member of staff practically in this organisation, even head office staff, are working with some children. Then we've got 300 mentors who are not employees of Kids Company, who mentor kids as well. And then we've got volunteers, and it's been between 10 to 8,000 volunteers a year who then come also and do things with the kids. So it's actually a large number of adults who have contact time with children.
But of those 16,000 you say you intensively work with, looking at the numbers, even with all of those volunteers, that still does mean for the key workers that they will be carrying quite a big caseload.
Yes, and that caseload varies. So, for example, some of them will need intensive input constantly. A few of them, for example, I've got some who are psychiatrically ill, they don't need a key worker constantly. So the way you've got to think about it is that there's a variety of intensities, a variety of how much a child or an individual uses the service at a given time. When I gave you 15,933, I gave you what's on that database.
So that doesn't mean they're all being intensively worked?
Not necessarily intensively at that time.
You could spend a lot of time looking into the financial irregularities of Kids Company and you would find loads. The tendency to inflate both the numbers of children, young people supported by Kids Company, as well as the cost of the services delivered to the children and young people of Kids Company was somewhat shocking.
The former member of Kids Company's management team we spoke to was also sceptical about the numbers.
I mean, that's just my take on it, and that's part of the reason why I needed to leave. Because ethically and just honestly, I'm quite a basic and straightforward person. I couldn't rationalise my continuing to stay there when I knew all of this was going on.
Kids Company emphatically denies it's inflated any numbers and has always passed regular audits of its database. The charity is convinced it has compelling evidence that its work made a significant impact to thousands of the most troubled young people. Its reports and website are full of impressive statistics about the number of people it's rescued from gangs, how it significantly improved school attendance and dramatically cut involvement in crime. But is there good evidence for these claims? Tim Lawton was Children's Minister in 2011 when Kids Company asked the government to provide 3 years of funding, and he looked at the evidence of the charity's effectiveness.
It didn't really stack up. I mean, we hear lots of things about the good work that Kids Company does. I have absolutely no doubt about the energy, enthusiasm and passion that Camilla has for the vulnerable kids that she looks after. But when you're dealing with public money, you have got to be able to show the efficacy of what you're doing with that public money and the value for money that the taxpayer is getting. And frankly, when they're put under that sort of scrutiny, it's hard to see how we're getting value for money. And there was a lot of question marks over the number of children who were being helped, how they were being helped, the sustainability of the help that they were given. And on that basis, it was difficult to give them the grant, certainly the amount of money that they're after. And that's why I raise serious concerns that we should be paying any money at all.
They say that they've been evaluated 15 times since 2000. When you were looking at the funding and looking at evaluations, the evidence of what they were doing, what did you make of those?
Well, I say again, there's no doubt that they do some good work, but for some reason, Kids Company always seems to have been judged under rather different criteria to other organisations seeking public money, and I always struggled to get that sort of data from Kids Company that we expected from other organisations, and so on that basis, more questions were asked, and too often, I'm afraid, the answers just weren't forthcoming.
When you, as a department, had decided, okay, we're not going to give you this money, how did they respond to that?
Well, I got a visit from a high-level trustee who's a familiar figure in the media who impressed upon me how it would be actually a much smarter idea to